Hey guys, GW Skeptic here to do an update on the first of our AI tests. Now, if this is the first video you're watching, maybe you want to go back and watch the first one in the series. It kind of explains a little bit about the format of what I want to do, and in general, what I think of the three major AIs, plus a couple of other AIs that I did honorable mentions on. But we're not going to be testing all of those because I can't afford a subscription to everything. So we're doing the big three. We're doing Gemini, ChatGPT, and Grok. And we're going to put these through a series of tests. Now, on my first one, just on the general model, the general pricing model, my overall impression based on what I personally use it for, I gave ChatGPT the victory. Um, but I also pointed out how these AIs they do things differently, and you'll see every AI, even the ones I'm not using, they will do certain things better than the others. So what I'm trying to do here, is I'm going to put these AIs through a variety of tests, coding challenges, image creation. Um, we'll be doing some deep research. We'll be doing some um, agent stuff. We're going to do the pre-scheduled tasks. We're going to test this AI on a lot of stuff. A lot of these features. We'll be doing voice tests. We'll be doing all kinds of stuff. But this first test is going to be building a chess AI. And I'm not asking the AIs to play chess. I might do that in a separate video. But what I wanted it to do was just build a simple AI that um, goes through static logic. There's no machine learning in here. It's just basically, you know, which chess AI can design the best, which LLM can design the best chess AI, excuse me, um, and how do they go about it, and which structure is better. So we're going to go through. So the way we're going to detect this is we're going to do this in two parts. Number one, we're going to look at the code, and I'm going to go through all the stuff I did in the background to get it to reach this level of code. We're going to test both on the structure, the cleanliness of the code, um, how good the algorithm is, um, how well it followed the instructions given to it, and you know, mostly, does it do the job that it's asked? Does it play chess at a high level? And so we're going to go through first of all the code briefly. Um, I'll try to keep it as brief and as simple as I can, given I'm not incredibly good at explaining things. But we're going to do that, and then we're going to go through all the games that were played. And let's see, I'm going to try to do this without spoiling. If you saw it above, you may have saw the results, but it's more about um, let's go up slowly. I don't want to spoil if you haven't seen it. Well, anyhow, that's out the window. But the point is, the point isn't to really prevent spoilers. Anyhow, the point is to go through the games, to kind of point out strengths and weaknesses, and we're going to see which one does better at chess and why. So first, we got Gemini here, and Gemini mostly followed the instructions. I had to give it a couple different rearrangements, both of the code and just because originally I had this where I was going to input the moves into the console and I was going to output, but that was very, very slow. So I asked it to go into class structure, and then this is what they all pretty much did equally on that task. But in the terms of designing the program itself, this one had one error, and then once I pointed out the error, it was able to correct it. So Gemini kind of was at the middle of the pack in terms of instruction following, coherence. Um, and here's Grok. I believe, yeah, this is Grok. And so this was what it generated at first. And, the cool thing about Grok was um, it didn't need to be told again. Like it generated code with zero bugs, and even the class code, like no bugs. Um, ChatGPT needed the most curation. In fact, it was even generating long form algebraic notation for chess when I specifically asked it for short form. So, in terms of instruction following, ChatGPT had to be kind of guided along. It even had a very long search algorithm. It was taking over a minute and it was still doing it. So I had to tell it to limit its search. And, when I told it to do that, pretty much it gave, let's see, yeah, it gave a max, yeah, here was the max time. It introduced iterative deepening, which is basically, it'll stop the search prematurely. Um, and you'll see signs of that here. But so like in terms of that, I'd say Grok did the best, but there's a reason for that here. But let's go into the structure. The structure here for Gemini, unique to both of them. It has the material values here, and this is what you'll typically see out of an AI for the chess engine when you tell it to program one. It'll do this 320 and 330 for the knight and the bishop. So basically 3.2 and 3.3. It kind of gets this from advanced AI algorithms, I think, that it was trained on. And then it has this heat map. And this heat map did really, really well for it, as you're going to see in the future. And it's the only one that did this heat map for every piece that encouraged it. It played very positionally strong. Um, and here's its evaluation function, and it checks for a draw at first, or checks for game-ending states. Um, and it has an endgame definition, which is nice for the king because the king has a very different place in the endgame. And you're going to see a lot of very good positional play from Gemini here, but this is its evaluation. And then here's its search. Its search is basic move ordering. Um, it's got move ordering, promotion, and then it's got captures. It doesn't have checks, which is weird. Um, and then it's got standard alpha beta pruning in this part right here. Which alpha beta pruning is just basically where during the search it'll cut out certain moves that it knows are going to be inferior in order to reduce the number of moves it'll search through. And then here's the process fin. They pretty much all generated this the same. So that's Gemini's strategy. Grok went with basically a very, very simple strategy. Grok just basically said, if we can pull it up here, it's got a very simple material evaluation. Just your standard 3 and 3 for your knight and bishop, 5 for your rook, knight for your 9 for your queen. It chooses 0 for the king, which is interesting because most will go with very high for the king. Um, so so what it does, this is its evaluation, is it basically says the evaluation is the material balance. That's it. That's all it's going to use. It doesn't use any positional type of analysis or any of that. Um, and then here is its search function right here, this min max, and this does not have any kind of alpha beta pruning, which is really a pain in the ass, and it's getting marked down for that because alpha beta pruning is actually very important. Trying to figure out what this is right here. Um, this is gonna go through. Um, this goes through the different values. I don't think this is a pruning. No, this isn't pruning. But anyhow, and here's the infinite loop with the well, hang on. Here's the process fan. That's standard. So now we get the ChatGPT. ChatGPT went the other way, right? It's got all your global variables here. It's got your material analysis. It uses the same thing as Gemini, 320 and 330 for your minors. Um, and this thing gets really involved. So this has a capture ordering. It has material balance. It has center control. It has mobility. Um, it uses static evaluation. Here's move ordering in general. And here's the quiescence, which I think is based on capture order, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not entirely sure how it works. And this does do alpha beta pruning um, with the move ordering. And it's got the standard find best move, and then it's got the main loop, and then this is when I had to ask it to correct a couple of little errors. And then this is what it gave me after the search here. And so this is basically saying, I didn't even notice this one, but if it scans too many things, then it's gonna then it'll terminate the search if it's going through too much stuff. And then this is the stuff we just looked at. And then it explains the functions quite well. And then this is what I told it to reorder stuff. ChatGPT is very thorough with its explanations, which is nice, but sometimes ChatGPT can throw a lot of garbage code at you. It'll not always remove outdated code, but in general, like for coding, it's going to give you the most complexity. But which is going to win out once we get to the chess games? So we're going to go here, and then we're going to turn off our display, excuse me. Then we're going to turn on our chess display here. And we're going to go through all the games. So this first one's going to be between Gemini and Grok. And this is going to be a pattern right here. You're going to see a lot. I have to do the whole PGN. Hang on. Give me a second. Okay, I'm not even gonna try to hide stuff, but well, you guys can't see what I'm doing anyhow. So we got this. Here's the PGN, and see, yeah, here's another feature. Like basically, the way this is working is the chess engine that will run both of the algorithms. What it'll do is it'll generate a starting position by generating the first, I think it's 4 moves, and what it does, and then what I'll do is I'll throw the position in here. We'll look at the evaluation. If the evaluation is less than zero point 0.8, and sometimes I'll load it multiple times just because sometimes the evaluation will um, be different when you load it differently because sometimes it'll look through different lines. This is a 0.4 for white, as you can see. So it's just a little bit better for white than the starting position, but a stronger AI is going to overcome a half pawn advantage. So right now we have Gemini is white and Grok is black. So we got this pawn takes. That's kind of an average, but Stockfish didn't like that move that much. And then you have them moving the knight back, and they'll play like logical moves sometimes. And it's interesting here. Grok doesn't go for this pawn, and that's part of the search. And one thing did was Grok's searches took an intense amount of time, probably because it didn't use any pruning, and it kind of was not fair for me to let Grok get by with it, but I let Grok get by with it just for various reasons, you'll see. But anyhow, Grok moves his rook up, and then you get pawn up, and then you get its rook back. They'll do funny things like this. And then bishop to defend the pawn, and then it frees up its bishop with d6 here. Moving the knight up to attack, and then centralizing the knight, and then the rook shuffling begins. And this is something Gemini did a lot. I don't understand it, but um, it really had a habit of moving its king. And it's kind of funny. Like, they'll play logical moves, but you get bizarre shit like this. Like, both are trying to centralize their kings. But other than that, the chess is sensible. Um, and black is actually getting a pretty hefty advantage here. So takes. King shuffling toward the center because that's what you do. You centralize your king, and yeah, this shit's hilarious. But then it'll do stuff like this, and I think the logic behind this was like Grok was going 8 brain, even though it had a 4 point advantage, and just letting Gemini get the draw. And Gemini obviously knew it wasn't at a great advantage. Um, so it just takes the draw. So the first match in the series, we have a draw. And then we're going to swap colors here. And then, the way it works is we take the position, and then both sides get to play, both sides swap in the position. And that's considered a set. So in that set, it's 1/2, 1/2. And so, make sure this is showing right. It is. Um, so now, Grok is white and Gemini is black. So same thing. Letting the queen and bishop out for Gemini. Grok moving his king out, moving his knight. So the position's not a lot different starting out. Grok pinning the knight, and then Gemini going for this flashy check, and then bringing Grok bringing the king out, because of course, like I said, that's what you do. You centralize your king. So you got to trade a bishops with check, um, and this is where it kind of starts to go a little bit bad for Grok here. Like when you move your king out like this is what's going to happen. And now Grok is in some deep trouble. Didn't see that fork, which is odd for the search. Um, but it probably was tunneling in on its own benefits and not enough on the opponent. So you got the queen attack. Grok has the sense to move his queen away, but it still looks bad. You got takes. The king's trying to desperately move away, and Gemini is munching like mad on all these pawns. You got this battery right here from Gemini. Then you got takes. Grok is doing itself no favors by opening the position. And then this, yeah, it had a habit of blocking like that. Like it's not looking good. Like now, Grok is finally trying to fight, but it's a little late for that. And now the queen's coming in, and then I don't know what this was all about. I guess it saw the danger of that bishop and like thought the exchange was worth it. So now we got queen and knight going in, and it's basically, you guys see the writing on the wall here. This is a mate coming up right here. King getting hunted down. Had to sack its queen. Grok did. And then mate is coming up in a couple moves. And then there's mate. So Gemini wins the set, but I wanted to go to 2 games in the set. So we're going to load another game here. So we're going to get one more set, and we're going to see who comes out on top. And so this is a different position with Gemini as white and Grok as black. Position is way more even than the previous. So let's go with this. So we got the knight coming out for Gemini. And then defends with the rook. Obviously wants to push the G file. And developing. Like, this, you know, they look sensible about half the time. And then you just get stuff like this where it's like you're just begging for shit to go wrong. And one other thing to note about Gemini, you can't see it here, but Gemini was like, Gemini had a depth of 4, but it was extremely fast. And for a bot so incredibly fast, it did very well. Like, it was like, within milliseconds, it would come up with a move. Grok would take 45 seconds to a minute to come up with its moves. Um, so you're starting to see, like, this was the case last time. Like, black would build up an advantage when Grok was black. And then here comes Grok with the check. Gemini coming out on defense. And this doesn't look great. And doesn't defend his knight, which I don't understand this right here. Well, I guess the pawn is pinned, which is, that's why I'm not 2000, I guess. Gets out of the pin, which is smart, and then takes the free pawn. Then the rook swings over, which is weird. Like, why why this and this? Like only the AI knows. Um, there's a little skewer between the bishop and the pawn. It's going to take the bishop. Um, trying to open things up a little bit by pushing. And once again, the rook moves to defend the bishop, and then we get takes. And looks like Gemini is starting to kind of get things together a little bit after a slow start. Brings the queen, centralizes. Grok gets a tempo. Gemini moves out of the way. As you can see from this evaluation, it's starting to flip because there's nothing really developing on Grok's side. Grok is pretty much moving its rook 3 different times, moving its knight 3 different times, not trying to develop any of its other pieces, its bishop, not trying to improve its queen or any of that. You know, I mean, Gemini's doing some of the same, but you can see the development difference. And as you can see, here was a chance to take a draw, and they did. I forgot that this game was a draw. But this was the second set. And so Grok takes. What did Grok have the advantage? Let's see. Yes, Grok did have the advantage. Yeah, Grok very much. I mean, Gemini very much had the advantage. Okay, so this is the fourth set. And this is going to be same position again, but Grok is white this time. So we'll load that in. So this is how Grok would handle things. It develops this knight. I think that's a little bit different than what happened before. Immediately tries to go for the tempo, and then Grok just goes back to defend the rook, which is bizarre. And now the rook goes and defends the g file. And Grok did a lot of this stuff, like just moving the same piece multiple times. And you could kind of see that the simplistic logic, even though it had a good search depth, but the simplistic logic didn't allow it to find the long-term positional advantages, the tactics that it needed to find. It just looked at material balance. As you can see, Gemini is doing a lot better job of developing because it has the heat map, so the AI understands where the pieces belong. So the knight's bouncing around again while Gemini has all this development. But strangely, Stockfish is given the advantage to Grok. And it would do this for a while. Like, Grok would get these short-term advantages as it was forcing the other AIs to play defense. And it would slowly lose the advantage. And this, I didn't understand, this sequence. Like, I don't understand. Well, I guess the queen's defending here. But what's this move about is what I'm curious about. And I don't quite understand what it saw. Like, it boots the bishop, and then the bishop just takes. And that's puzzling. It's like, why? Like, did its search depth run out and stop on a move that it thought was advantageous? That's the only thing I could think of. But either way, Grok is in some serious trouble, down 5 points according to Stockfish. And yeah, queen check, and then the king moves out of the way. And now Gemini is starting to use its developmental advantage getting in the opponent's territory, Grok doing what Grok does and shifting its rook around. And now Grok gets forked, which I don't know how it didn't see. Oh, wow. Well, it's just a trade, but now there's going to be a queen trade, and Grok is up. Gemini's up 4 points of material. And then there's a fork, and that's a real fork because the pawn can't take. So then you got rook there. The bishop can't develop because the rook gets the 7th rank, and it's just a mess for Grok right now. It's not completely over, but Grok just shifting its rook over and over. And by the time Grok gets his rook involved, it's starting to look very dire. And there's another fork that it sees with the bishop. And now we're going to start cleaning house pretty soon. And I don't know what that rook move was all about, but did not serve Grok well. Grok was kind of ooga booging, like basically walks on a checkmate, but what choice did it have? It could have, I don't know. Was this checkmate inevitable though? Let's see. Well, this was going to be checkmate. So, I don't know. It probably just saw the writing on the wall. It was like, well, I'm going to delay checkmate as long as I can. Even though it really didn't, but that's another thing entirely. So, because we said +2 was going to win the set, Gemini won this set. And so, I want to do this round robin style, but at the same time, because Grok was performing so badly, I wasn't even going to bother if whoever wins this next one between Gemini and ChatGPT is going to be superior at the chess part. And you'll see a lot better chess here. So we'll load this PG, and this is Gemini. I just kept this white, and I put ChatGPT as black. And so ChatGPT is like the medium of the model. It's got the heat map. ChatGPT doesn't have the heat map, but ChatGPT has all these other move orderings, capture order, very complex algorithms. But sometimes those can kind of make the bot not materialistic enough. I've tried to make chess bots like that, and it's just like when you bots can become very materialistic, too materialistic, and that's the problem that AI experts were trying to solve with chess programming is how to program a chess AI to understand material advantages without being so overly materialistic that it's just going to go pawn hunting for every useless pawn while it loses the advantage. But, so does Gemini strike that balance, or is Gemini too simplistic and is ChatGPT's method the better? So we're going to see. So this is position 1. Again, Gemini's white. So first thing we get is a check, and then we get the pawn moving, and we get the bishop moving to where it views as a better place. Developing its queen, basically begging for a knight trade, but instead the queen moves to get a tempo on the knight, and properly, I think, it trades. So the queen's out putting pressure, and then this move is a little bit mysterious, but it controls some squares the queen can go to. And then the bishop comes out, which is a little dubious because it blocks this e-pawn here. Then you get a3, and then you get the pawn being attacked. You let the bishop out, defend the pawn, and now the knight stops this trade, which is smart. So both are playing pretty rational chess. If I were to guess the rating, I'd say probably maybe 1100-ish. It'd be interesting to try to play all these bots and see. Maybe I'll even make bonus content for that, but I'd have to redesign the code a little bit. But queen's attack, queen moves to defend, to attack that square, and then basically GPT goes to defend that pawn, which is nice. Defend the pawn, put the bishop at a better square, and then GPT puts this knight out there, and then Gemini damages the structure. Here's a fork to try to get one of the bishops off the board. And then there's that, and then there's a trade there. Let's see, it attacks the queen. The queen doesn't go for the pawn, it goes for the check. And then Gemini goes for the trade. ChatGPT refuses the trade, gaining space for Gemini. And then you got the queen moving out of the way, and then this is starting to really look kind of hairy for Gemini. And Gemini continuing to try to get more space. It looks hairy for ChatGPT rather, not the other way around. And this is starting to look bad for ChatGPT here. So there's the queen threatening things, and then there's the battery. And now it's kind of starting to swing back toward ChatGPT a little bit. ChatGPT's got a 2-point material advantage because of these two pawns here that I was able to take with the queen. And there's castling, which is, you didn't see a lot of castling from these bots. But Gemini castles, and ChatGPT doesn't. One thing about ChatGPT is I don't know how much ChatGPT understood about the position, because I don't know. Let me look at my IDE here, but yeah, you'll see, like, these are the moves that it makes, and this is ChatGPT trying to move here, and it would do this, and I don't fully understand what's going on, but ChatGPT did not understand legal moves occasionally. But the mysterious thing was, I guess, depending on what order the moves are loaded in the memory, it came up with different moves. So it was able to overcome not making legal moves. I gave it a pass. I was going to give it a pass until it prevented a game from completing, because it was making logical moves, but there was something about the position that it didn't understand, and I don't quite know what it was. But yeah, you'd see strange moves like this and strange things like that. But you see Gemini moving to the corner. Now you'd think moving to the corner is safer, but it actually kind of compromised according to Stockfish. And I guess because it allows opening up of the position, and ChatGPT really trying to be the aggressor here. And ChatGPT moving its queen out of the way smartly, giving the bishop the boot, and looks like it wants to create a battery along the F file, which is the only open file right now. Nobody seems to be fighting for it, and I think Stockfish is starting to see, like, hey, there's a big old file here. Like, do any of you want to fight for it? But no, for whatever reason, Gemini goes up with the rook. GPT offers a queen trade again, and this time it's accepted. Um, and it's still saying black has the advantage, which is weird. So, rook trade offered, rook's come off the board, and Gemini trying to reposition, positioning the king more toward the center, attacking weak pawns and the defending, and now the king. This is where Gemini's endgame um, is really superior. So, you see him jostle for a while here. You see the king moving, and then you see this mass of black pawns here. You see this 5-on-1, which is absolutely horrifying. You got passer here, you got two passers here, you got protection here, and then you can easily create more passed pawns. That's why there's the advantage there. But then again, the structure, the rook activity is really good for Gemini. That's about all Gemini is going for it. And then ChatGPT just decides to give up a pawn for who knows what reason. Then you see another pawn come off the board. And I don't know what all this is about. Like, you're not getting anywhere. And ChatGPT seems to know to push the pawns. You got to push those passed pawns. And then I don't know what this move was. Oh, it was protected by the bishop. But ChatGPT poking and prodding in the position. That's what a lot of these advanced search trees allow. Is like, okay, the search tree doesn't completely find a solution, but it finds other ideas along the way. Here's a mate threat. So he's got to move. And he's trying to protect his own pawns, but I don't know how good of an idea that is. Because there comes the rook, and now finally that pawn is free. But this is going to be mate here in a second. And then obviously has to delay it. Gemini does. And then there's that. So ChatGPT wins round one, and as you can see, Gemini actually built up a pretty good advantage for a while. Like, where did Gemini have the advantage? It was about here. And so Gemini could have easily won this game, right? But we still got to play the other in the set. We got to play this one, and we're going to see what this outcome is. So, same as last time. Grok is now white, Gemini is black. So, you get a little bit of a different start. Pawn up here, giving a place for the knight, giving a place for the bishop, letting the queen come out. Or rather, excuse me, ChatGPT is white. So knight goes back. ChatGPT trying to be very aggressive. Developing and pretty much taking advantage of the queen being out, being a target. Now damaging the structure. moving its rook to defend, moving the rook to the half open, moving the queen where it can move out of the way. And ChatGPT is starting to build a huge advantage. And here was an interesting one. Like, this sack right here, it's actually pretty insane. And ChatGPT, now, apparently Stockfish finds a defense, I guess. Um, I guess it's saying you can take this on b7 and lose your queen? What? Well, I guess, because you get another pawn. Yeah, you get a pawn, and then you would lose a knight and a rook with this check right here. But we're not going to look at that. We're not chess grandmasters. We're just trying to analyze the game. So, but white does not do that. So now white's in deep trouble. So ChatGPT's got a little bit of a hole to dig itself out of. So it gets his queen out of the way, gains some space and protects the knight. Pretty decent post. It's going to take a couple moves to get that knight out of there. And now ChatGPT trying to consolidate its forward position. And then this mysterious move here. First of all, why is it moving its knight on the edge? Where it has to move it back, or it does move it back. And now it moves it where it should be. So now we got the queen centralized. We got this, another mysterious move from Gemini. I have no clue. I have no clue what a lot of these moves are, to be honest. And then the rook. The bots seem to do this a lot, like move its rooks behind the pawns. It didn't want to create color complex weaknesses, I suppose. But anyhow, pushing to boot the rook. Um, and then pushing to gain more space. And then gain even more control. But leaving, the position's bad because you got a lot of spots for these knights to hop in and start causing trouble. But this rook is here to defend the second rank, so maybe it works. And this is a good move here, like just stopping all the shenanigans. Knight has no way to get in now. And that's probably one of the saving moves of the position from ChatGPT. But Gemini continues to have a lead, just like it did last game. And then there's that mysterious move. And Stockfish actually approves, and I guess this is why it liked this. And it still likes Gemini's position. And so GPT trying to fight, trying to poke, trying to prod, trying to gain space on the queen. The queen is denied any kind of entry, reinforced. So you got trying to get its bishop out. Now you got, I guess you could trade the queen for the. So GPT is really positionally focused here, pretty much trying to put the squeeze. And I don't think Gemini knows how to react to this. And for all of Gemini's positional play, it was very conservative about pushing its pawns, and that was probably to its detriment. But it's still in the lead here. So the rook gets out of the way, and then you see it check. It blocks. Here's the rook shifting over again. And this is what ChatGPT did that I liked. Is like, its plans didn't always work, but it would poke and it would prod. And it was very good at coming up with things ultimately. eventually it would find something that worked. I was like, you don't always understand its moves, but right now it's still 3 points behind, like in terms of the position. So GPT has an active rook, but it's kind of running out of opportunities to equalize the material. Both rooks come off. And then you have GPT trying to create a passer, and then this mysterious move, and I don't get it. I guess I don't understand. It probably had to go here to, well, it probably had to take, and then it probably had to go down here. Like, there's a way to defend this. Like, you probably have to move your king down here and blockade. Um, Something like that, but now it's going to promote. And maybe this was an Achilles heel for Gemini, but now the tables turn. ChatGPT has a queen now, and now it's pretty much just academic. Like you're not gonna win in this position. So, and they're able to convert, and ChatGPT wins the thing. I didn't put ChatGPT against Grok because Grok was just gonna get stomped, and I didn't want to sit through it, and it was late at night. So, and in general, we kind of get insights onto the approaches of all three, which are very different. And ChatGPT, um, its bot's complexity definitely paid off. Obviously, the move ordering allowed it to find multiple plans in its search, and maybe the lack of depth combined with the limits I put on its iterative deepening, because I actually lowered it down to 10 seconds. Maybe that's why there was a couple bizarre moves thrown in there, but and maybe that's why it couldn't even find some legal moves. But even with the limitation, GPT did really well, but Gemini did extremely well for a bot that was extraordinarily fast, and it had a depth of 4, but its evaluation function was actually um, very fast, and it did um, alpha beta pruning. Um, Grok was simplistic, slow because it didn't include any kind of pruning. And yeah, its code was clean looking, um, but clean code sometimes doesn't get the job done, and I think that's the lesson here. Like your code can be clunky, your code can have a few bugs in it, your code can, sometimes it could take you a couple steps to get to where you want to go. But being thorough, being complete, that is important. And so that's why ChatGPT will, in this competition, once again take the day. So, who designs the best chess AI? Um, Clearly, even given the couple of times where it didn't follow instructions, in terms of just getting the job done, it was clearly the better AI. I wouldn't say the most interesting. Gemini, like if I poked and prodded at that, and I asked it to expand upon its engine ideas, it might generate a significantly better engine. Like if it included all the ChatGPT stuff or other things, with its fast evaluation function, if it remained fast, which those things are going to add time too. Maybe Gemini could have done something. But anyhow, that's the video. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening. And God bless and have a good night.